Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sorry.
That's all right. How are you?
Doing fine, doing fine. Let me turn
Great.
the volume up here.
All right.
Just a second. Here at Muhammad Schools.
Yeah.
Turn the light this way. The light out now. Okay.
All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. The long-awaited day.
Appreciate it.
I see we both have our thinking caps on,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so this should be a pretty good session. You are you're wanting to speak on a very important subject, as you know. Important, just not so much for us as individuals, but the whole premise of marriage is to bring together individuals so that the society can continue. And that's probably the most important role in society, bringing people together, males and females, in order to continue the line of progress for human beings. That sounds like something important, doesn't
Yes, it does.
it? All right. Um, is there anything you'd like to say about yourself before we get thick into it?
Well, this is my third marriage.
Mhm.
First marriage, I had 5 children. Second marriage, I didn't have any children there. I have 3 stepchildren from there. And then the third marriage, my wife, she had 6 children when I met her. We have one now, a Muhammad. He's 11 years old.
Yes.
We've been married about 12 years.
All right. That's success.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're almost neck and neck here, man. I've been married 3 times.
Oh, alhamdulillah.
The first time I had 4 lovely children who are living down here with me now in North Carolina.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. And second child was one girl. She is recently deceased as of almost this time last year.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, complications due to sickle cell
Hmm.
anemia. And my third marriage gave me 3 beautiful children. Um, who are again all with me down here. Yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
except I didn't mention the one who's also deceased from the first marriage. My oldest son was in
Hmm.
a very terrible car crash
Oh,
a
boy.
couple of years ago. Yeah. So I've had 8 altogether.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
We're in
lot.
the big leagues.
Yeah.
And I believe that what will come out of this discussion is not only information that may help us individually,
Hmm.
but also information that may help whoever chooses to listen to this particular broadcast, because there are going to be gems of wisdom in it for all parties involved.
Okay.
So I'm looking
Hmm.
looking very much forward to our discussion. What I'd like to do is begin with, as I always do, begin with what is called etymology. Are you familiar with that term?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. You want to explain it the way you understand it?
Well, it's the root. From what I understand, it's the root of the word. The definition. It gives you the real definition of the word. The root of it.
Yeah, yeah. The dictionary describes it as the true meaning.
Hmm.
Yeah, the root of the word etymology is really secretly, I would say, related to the word atom.
Hmm.
Etymology,
Hmm. Wow.
atomology, because it's discussing the molecular development of language.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't know that language has a molecular development,
Hmm.
much like anything that develops from molecules into substance and further. So if you study the development of atoms, and if you just discover what atoms actually do or are doing, you'll understand how language developed. And language developed a little bit differently than what we consider to be language in terms of words put together, placed in a certain historical background, whether it's Spanish language, French language, Arabic language, English language, whatever languages we're discussing, we assign them to language groups. But that's not how language itself developed.
Mm.
Language itself has a what they call a true origin. That's what etymology is. It's the true, this is their words now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a true meaning of words, which means or suggests at least that all of the other words and the ways they came about were false.
Mm. Wow.
And if that's true, then we're living in a world of false meanings for words.
Mm.
And after my study of language, I'd have to concur with that, that we're living in a world of false language. And that's why the world has gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs as it has, because we're operating under misnomers when it comes to what words are. And if words are attempting to tell us what people are, then it means that we're given the wrong meanings or definitions for what even people are. And that's why we're so messed up in the head, because we don't know who we are based on their words.
Mm.
The very idea that they would call us black and white people tells you all you need to know. In reality, what is a black man?
Mm.
What is a white woman? So this world has done a bang up job at separating people unnecessarily into camps and corners that don't support what a human being is supposed to be about. That's where we made the mistake, when we started separating people into camps that don't justify their humanity. But they were assigned in the same way that animals and objects were assigned. That's a black automobile. That's
Mm.
a white house. But it tells you nothing about the person inside, nothing at all. So if I can say about my dog that my dog is a lavender retriever, that tells you something about the species.
Right.
I don't say that's a black dog just because the color of the fur is black.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough for me to say that's a white dog or that's a black dog or that's a brown dog. That's not how we refer to animals. Why would we refer to people like that?
Wow. Yeah.
You see the logic in that?
Jeez.
Yeah, why would we continue to refer to people by just colors when color is what they call skin deep?
Mm-hmm.
I could sit here right now, put spit on my finger, and rub my skin enough times to have it diminish. And if I keep doing that, I'm going to have a light brown spot where there was once dark brown. So what is color? It's superficial. If I'm in a fire, I lose it. I lose the melanated tones and all of that. I might be pink by the time all is said and done. But that doesn't make me a pink man,
Mm-hmm.
nor does it allow me to diminish what I am as a man
Mm-hmm.
because the color is gone.
Right.
So these are issues, believe it or not, that the Quran is addressing. It's not addressing it in the modern day lingo that we're used to hearing, but it's addressing much of it in coded language. And when I say coded, I don't mean that it's not in the open for you to get. It's in the open for you to get if you do the work, if you put in the study, if you put in the work to uncover what Allah is actually saying and what the Quran is actually suggesting. Allah says, do they not yatadabbaru al-Quran? Do they not deeply ponder the Quran? That doesn't sound like a book that I can just pick up and get the answers to.
Right.
You have to deeply, that's the kind of study that they do when they go to college and to the universities and so forth. That's not elementary school study, to deeply ponder something. Elementary is 1 and 1 is 2, you know, and, learn your colors now, red, blue, orange, that's elementary, where you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
do any deep investigation into what's being said. But when you start to go deeper, it's like the deep sea diver who goes deeper. When you're on the surface of the water, it's not that much of a challenge. You can walk in it, you can kind of run in it, in knee-high water, you can get away with those things. But if you decide to go in where you're up to your neck, or if you're over your head with water, now it presents a different challenge. So the Quran presents the kind of challenge that allows us to be deep, deep, deep into the water without drowning.
Mm.
And Allah tells you if all of the oceans were ink, see, He's telling you in the Quran what the Quran is. If all of the oceans were ink and all of the trees were pens, and we were to times them by 7,
Mm.
we could not exhaust the kalima, the word of Allah, the words that are in this book that are meant to signal certain ideas to the mind. They are innumerable and they are inexhaustible, is what Allah is saying. You couldn't get to the end of it.
Mm.
You had a question?
No.
Okay. So I like to begin with the etymology of words, and I do it also because most people who listen to us are going to be people who may not have graduated from, colleges and universities, and people, everyday people, just common people struggling to learn what life is.
Mm-hmm.
They're not into molecular biology, they're not into all of these fancy terms and sciences and all of that. But I want to be able to explain it to them on a level where if they chose to get into those fields of endeavor, this will still be gravy for them. This will be easier to understand if I'm using language that corresponds with molecular biology or genetics or something like that. They're going to more easily understand it because I'm using the same lingo.
Mm.
And I'm showing you how all of these words, wherever they are, they're still related, but we haven't been taught the relationships of words. That's why we're not clear that we're not a black people. We're not clear that there's no such thing as white people. We're not clear that there's no such thing as race. That's another word that was foisted upon us. These are invented terms that are invented for purposes of artificially separating humans. We don't even know what a human is. How about that one?
Mm.
And if you don't believe me, just go out next day to work, to the store, or whatever, or with your friends or even with your family and say, tell me what human means. And
Mm-hmm.
they might come up with a lot of fluffy meanings. Oh, it means, a person who is kind. No, 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 no. Tell me the etymology meaning.
Mm.
Tell me the true meaning of human. Where did that word come from?
Mm.
How are we supposed to be using it? Maybe it's something bad. There's a dictionary that says a human is a monster. Are you aware of
No. No.
that? There's a dictionary called Black's Law Dictionary. It's a law dictionary for real.
Mm. I've heard of that.
And it describes the legal meaning for the term human as monster.
Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah. But it makes you think, doesn't it? Why in the world would they call a human a monster? I can give you the meaning though. I can tell you why they do it. It's not in their book why they do it, but I know why they do it.
Mm.
They do it because the word human and the word monster are code words. This is where we began. That all of these words are code words. So Allah had to come with the Quran to make the corrections on their language. And in order to make the corrections on their language, Allah had to use code words, but they were codes that were way above the pay grade of the people who invented language.
Mm.
But they are simple. They're more simple than the people who invented language because the words are tied into what is called the fitrah, meaning the natural order of things. That's Allah's language. His language is not Arabic. His language is not Spanish or Portuguese or Chinese. It's not Mandarin. It's not Latin. Allah's language, hear me very clearly, is the fitrah. And the fitrah represents all of the various patterns that you see in everything that he created. And those patterns are suggesting things to your intellect from the day you get here, from the day you're born. Everything that you taste, touch, hear, feel, and whatever, smell are sending signals to the developing intellect. And those signals are creating in you what is called an intellect. Your intellect does not begin before birth. Your intelligence begins before birth. Your intelligence is clocked into your genetic fabric, into your DNA, RNA. It's clocked in. You come here intelligent. No university, no school, no grammar school, nothing gives you your intelligence.
Mm.
The word intelligence simply means the internal telling that comes from the gens or the genes. The internal intel, communication,
Mhm.
telephone, telegram, communication, coming from where? From the gens, the genes. So you come here. That's what we need to tell our grandchildren. You come here intelligence. What you come here intelligent. What happened? Especially when you see them living a life that's less than intelligent.
Right.
Yeah, I tell my grandchildren, say, wait a minute, now you came here as a baby before you could even speak. Before you could lift a spoon to your mouth to feed yourself, you still had intelligence. There
Mm.
was something in your DNA that told you that was wrong. When you did something and you look at your mama like, oh, I know I messed up now. You knew you were deep inside of you. You knew that wasn't correct because of the responses you were getting. When you touched something, it was too hot or you got burnt on the stove. Was it, oh, whoa, whoa, that's my intelligence doing that. My intelligence was put in me to save me. That's the role of intelligence. It's there to save you. It doesn't wait for another man to step in. Allah teaches you, as he says in the Quran, he's teaching all of us. So that's your intelligence. But the intellect is a different word. They mix them up in the dictionaries. They say intelligence, the see intellect. You look up intellect, it says see intelligence. They're not the same word.
Mm.
Intellect means the internal election that takes place in the mind when you have to make a choice between two or more things. That's all intellect does. When you have to make a choice between two or more things, your mind begins to go into overdrive, trying to decide which one is better for me. How wonderful Allah is. You got a choice between two cars? Which one is best for me? Not which one makes me look better to the girls.
Mm.
Not that, but which one is actually better for me based on what I need to do.
Mm.
I have a big family. I need to go shopping. I might need a truck instead of this fancy car.
Right.
See, so the intellect is designed to provide the best choices for you based on the input of information. The input of information is going to determine the value and the outcome of what is called the intellect. And the intellect can be diminished if the information is less than quality. So whatever learning we're getting from the environment through our five basic senses, that learning from the environment can actually diminish what's going on inside of us as decision making, choice making. There's a very popular hadith that says that every child was born, the phrase is alel fitra, upon the fitra. Every child, tifl, that's the word for infant, was born alel fitra, upon the fitra. What does it mean, upon the fitra? The word for upon is ala. So it's ala al fitra, upon the fitra. But what does it mean to be upon something? To be upon something means that the something that I am upon is responsible for getting me to where I need to go. If I'm upon the back of a horse or the back of a camel or the back of a donkey or the back of my Mercedes Benz, If I'm in the seat of my Mercedes Benz, that's me being on the back of my pack animal to get me to where I need to go. And that's its job. Its job is to get me there and to get me there safely and soundly and the best time and all of that. But I also have a reciprocal responsibility to my vehicle or to my pack animal or to my whatever is getting me around. I have the responsibility of making sure that if it's an automobile, that it has its proper gas and oil changes, depending on how far I have to go. I have to make sure that I turn the motor off every now and then, and it might overheat or something. Let me give the car a little break, like I would give my animal a break. So, although I'm not doing exactly the same thing for the animal that the animal is doing for me, I'm doing something for the animal that the animal needs. And that's what makes it reciprocal. So every child is born ala al fitra, upon the fitra. Look at the deeper meaning now. That means that the fitra is responsible to me. This natural world that I'm looking at is responsible to me. But Ben, don't get big headed, because in the same way that the fitra is responsible to me, I'm responsible to it. So I'm not supposed to treat the natural order that's out here teaching me every day and providing all of these good things, these resources, these foods, and all of this stuff that I get every day. I'm responsible to it also. I'm not supposed to be out here as a child just seeing if I could kill insects and, just because insects are in front of me. They're not in my house. Why am I going out of my way trying to kill a bunch of bugs, kill a bunch of ants? They're not bothering me. They're contributing to the fish fry. They're doing what they were created to do. So I'm not being responsible to the fitra. I'm out here polluting the air. I'm not being responsible to the fitra. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, man, I gotta, smoke and everything and exhaust and all of these things. I'm not trying to bring any bills or anything to Congress to say change this law that pollutes the air, pollutes the water. If I'm not trying to do that, I'm not being responsible to the fitra. And it's really that simple. I like this pace because I'm gonna drop some stuff on you about marriage. That's gonna make you. That's gonna make you. That was the end of the sentence. All right. Now, this word, marriage, is a very tricky word because it has to do with a particular age. It's Mar age. It's the age of whatever Mar is. And Mar in our regular language means to spoil a thing. If I say that's been marred and spoiled, or if I say as a people, we have been marred and spoiled, that means that we're out of our natural form. And age is just a period of time in which that happened. So mar age is a trick word in the English language. I normally don't like to say that we are entering into mar age, the age of mar, of being marred. And you have to remember this about this tricky language, that the purpose of this tricky language is to get our minds acclimated to the diminishing of human worth. That's the whole purpose of calling people out of their name. That's the whole purpose of calling people and having people refer to themselves by things that are less than what their dignity calls for. The whole purpose is to diminish the standing of human beings in the eyes of God. What I'm telling you is directly from Al Quran, where Iblis was supposedly talking back to God when he said, I'm going to come from before them, from behind them, from their right, and from their left. And when I get finished with those chumps, there's not going to be a single one who's going to be worthy of your attention, except just be a few of them, hanging around. There's a few that are going to be worthy of your attention. And Allah said, do as you will. But I'm going to let you know what I'm going to do for those who choose to follow you. And then there's another conversation that happens. But Allah says, you'll get them all. You could get them all, but you won't get my elite. So that tells the person of faith something very important, that your struggle, if you will, should be to be in that elite class. And elite doesn't mean haughty or, seeing yourself as something that you're not. Elite simply means that you're following a set of principles and protocols that lead you to where Allah wants you to go. That's all it means. You're following the rules. If you have a question at any time, just chime in.
Okay.
Okay. Um, so that's what that's about. Let me just go back and clean up one part of what I've said, and that is why Black's Law Dictionary refers to us humans as monsters.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for referring to us as monsters is because they're speaking coded language. They're speaking symbolic language. They're speaking even legal language. Black's Law Dictionary, as I said, is a legal dictionary. And they're speaking legal language, which means that they're talking in code. If you didn't know anything about legal processes and that kind of thing, and you were sitting in a court for 16 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 4 hours a day, you wouldn't understand half of what the judges and the lawyers are talking about. They'd have to have your lawyer there interpreting the judge's language because he's speaking legalese. He says something that you might think is great for you, and it'd be, 20 years in the pokey. You didn't realize that's what he was saying because you don't speak that language. You speak English, but legalese supersedes your understanding of English, even though it's in English.
Mm.
Same thing with medicalese. You could be in the hospital and the doctors talking to each other, and they could say he has a hypothesis of the prognostices, and his chondropalatis is erected and eroded, and you think he might be talking about you getting out tomorrow. You ain't going home. You might not go home the way he's talking. But he can talk in front of you because you have no idea what he's talking about. He's got to bring in another intern or somebody or the doctor has to come in and say, well, let me interpret that for you. You have 6 days to live.
Mm.
Let's hope it's not that bad, but that's the legalese that you have to learn to understand. All right. We're just having a little fun. So monster is a combination of two ideas, the moon and the star. Moon star. The human is a moon star. Let me tell you what that means. And it should be especially interesting for those who call ourselves Muslims because that's the symbol that they gave all of us to fall in love with. The crescent and star, the moon star. So they're saying in secret, those who follow this logic, they're saying that the entire Muslim world is the real monster on this planet.
Mm.
They are monsters. Be careful of them.
Mm.
They react like monsters. They're highly emotional. They have very little light to guide them. They're in the moonlight. They're not in the sunlight like we are. We're Christ. We are the Son of God. We are with him, the Son of God. See, we have the Son on our side. They say S-O-N, but do we know it's S-U-N? In fact, the Bible also says that he is the Son of God. S-U-N, the Bible says that. He is the light. All right? So you have this idea operating in human life that these people operating based on sunlight, another is operating based on moonlight combined with starlight. And stars are really just flickers in the night. They just flicker. They're not giving you any steady light. You can't build anything based on starlight. They're just flickers, like ideas that you have. They come and they go. And of course, the moon is waxing and waning, But there will come a time even for the moon when there will be no light at all, at least for a day. On the 30th day, there will be no light, during Ramadan. That night comes, and then after that, we look for the Eid. All right. So the moon doesn't give you very much light, and its light increases, but then it diminishes. It increases and then it diminishes. What it's talking about is the viability of people's knowledge. They are attempting to explain to us what knowledge is. Knowledge has always represented light in every religion. Light means knowledge. Knowledge means light in every religion. When they talk about light, in the beginning, blah, 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 and blah, 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 and he created a greater light to rule the day and a lesser light to rule the night. He's saying the same thing. So if those lights are taken away from you, you're in the dark. So if you're operating based on moonlight and starlight, you're operating based on your emotions and your instincts. Now, this is getting a little deep, but I want you to have it just as study material. There are people in this world who are trained. I use that word on purpose because that's how animals are taught. There are people in this world who are trained to operate based on emotions, that's the moon, and instincts, flickers of light. Your instincts are something that turns on when it's time to save you from something. When you need to make sudden moves that you don't have time to think about and you don't have time to even feel a certain way about them, you got to do them or it's life and death. Your instincts are dealing with life and death. That's the sun and the moon. That's what they operate for. That's how they operate. So when they looked at the Muslim world, that's not necessarily what they saw. They saw pure light when they looked at the earliest of the Muslim communities coming up under Muhammad the Prophet. They saw pure light. The sciences they started to come out of that light. Geometry, geography, all of that, all the access to the greatest sciences on this planet came out of that period between the time of Muhammad's passing and maybe a good 200 to 300 years after that. The Muslims were deep into the sciences, and that science spread all across the known world. At the time, it formed what is now called the European Renaissance. It went all the way into Europe, through Spain, through Italy. It went into Europe and it lit Europe up of people who had the Bible under their arm. They had their own light, but they didn't know how to interpret it. They had the Bible. They had the light. The Bible has plenty of light, but they did not know how to interpret it. That's part of the reason why the Quran had to come, to dispel the darkness that the previous scripture had left, because the knowledge was locked away for the elite. And I mean this in the political sense of elite now. Those who were told, do not share this information with the common masses because the common masses are asses. We can't afford to have this high wisdom in the hands of doop-de-doops. Can't afford to do that. So we have to keep it amongst a priesthood. This is when priesthoods began to develop. They developed before this, but this is another instance of the priesthood being developed, where people were saying that we couldn't share this information. They did this in the church, the early church. We can't share this information. And it's what brought about the order that we call the Gnostics. You've heard of the Gnostics?
Hmm.
Yeah, it brought about the Gnostics. These were people who felt as though they could intuit knowledge. They didn't need the priest. They didn't need their high rabbis and the priesthood. And they could interpret it themselves. God will speak to them directly. That's what the early Gnostics believed.
Hmm.
But then they started to sing another song once they started coming into a little power. And they said, oh, well, yeah, God speaks to us, but not all of us.
Hmm.
Yeah, God can speak to you. You don't need the Pope, you don't need the priests, you don't need the bishops and all these people. He speaks directly to us, but all of us are not ready for that. We're not conditioned for that. Therefore, you have to come to us. This is the Gnostic story. You have to still come to us for interpretation and and that kind of thing. So they did the same thing that the priesthood did. They just formed a different priesthood, a Gnostic priesthood, and that's how that happened. All right. All of this is related, whether you realize it or not, because all of these developments are feeding into the concepts that we have about relationships between male and female, between man and woman. They all feed the bigger picture of what we are as human beings and how we got here based on language and the manipulation of language. All right. So, what does this word marriage mean? What is it referring to? I'm going to give you a hint. Any word that begins with the letter M, and that's whether it is in Arabic, English, Hebrew, doesn't matter the language. This is universal. Any language that has a word where it begins with the letter M, that's the 13th letter of the English alphabet. You know what they say about the number 13.
Lucky.
That's what they say. Yeah, they want you to believe that. But in their literature, 13 is not an unlucky. You had Jesus and his 12 disciples.
Mm,
What did that make Jesus?
13.
The 13. You
Mm,
got the judge and 12 jury members.
right.
What does that make the judge?
13.
They want you to believe that 13 is unlucky when 13 is the best number in the bunch. But it's not for you, it's for us. You stay among the 12. You just be a disciple. We'll be the leader of the pack. All right. So if you look at the word moon, the word moon begins with M, and the letter M signifies emotions. It signifies something that is under the rule of emotions. It's true for the moon. It's true for the word that came from the word moon called moony or money. People get very emotional about their money. Try not paying them and see what happens. And you owe them and see if they don't get very emotional on you. Right? So what does this mean? This means that M is actually a principle of operation. It's a principle. And they name these things by these words that begin with these letters because they were letting the higher up people, the people who are onto their language and how they put language together as a scheme, they wanted to preserve the logic of their language. So they put it in everyday, ordinary language. If I say mad, it's going to have something to do with my emotions.
What about Muhammad?
Muhammad has an M because of what is called a prefix. His name is not really Muhammad. His name is Ahmed.
Mm,
But the Mu means one who is something. Now, it's connected to the idea of emotions because one who is something is that because of his emotions. That it's a bigger picture. You are what you are because of not because of your intellect. You are who you are because of your emotions, because of how you think about how you feel. We feel things, but the more important thing for us is how we think about how we feel. What do you think about your children? Oh, well, this one here, man, he's, I don't know if you saw the latest, what is that guy? It's a comedian. I forget his name. Uh, Muslim comedian. I forget his name. He's got a new Netflix thing out. And he's talking about the differences between his two children. And one of them, he just loves he's on top of the world with this one child, but another one, oh man, you know, yeah, because he's describing what he thinks about them based on how he feels about them. That's just naturally human to do that. Even if you don't say that, I have 8 children. You have many children. And you know, there are some that you kind of favor over the others. It's just natural. You don't say it. I like this one better. It's not about liking one better in that sense. So it's not like I'm going to feed this one, but I'm not going to feed that one. No, that's not how it goes. Just in terms of natural proclivity for a person, natural feeling, not wanting to be around a person a lot, wanting to be with the person, go to the movies, but there's certain ones that you rather go with than the others for that. And then there are certain ones that you want to just sit down and go to a library with because that's what they do. That's their thing. So these are all feelings. It's not a good or bad thing. It's just how we choose to be. So that's one who. But the word Muhammad is from the smaller word Ahmed. And that has a very special meaning also that we may not have time to go into today. But take another one, Maryam. That begins with a natural M. Maryam. Maryam, when you look at the totality of her life and the events that occurred during her time, you'd have to say that she was driven more by emotions than she was by anything else. She was in the middle of a desert while pregnant, riding on a donkey. You know how emotional that will make a woman who's near giving birth? She's right at the threshold of giving birth, and she's out in she's got to find dates. You know, Allah had to inspire her to eat the dates for some water, for some sustenance, and do this to cool your, you know. Oh man, she had to go through some stuff. She said, had I been a thing not born, you know how deep you got to be as a mother to say this is too rough for me, man. I wish I had not even been a thing thought of. Not just not born. I wish I had not even been thought of so that I could think about not being born. That's a hell of a feeling. And then on top of that, she got people accusing her of being a, I don't want to say the word. Where's your husband? And all she could do was point at the child. Ask him. And he began to do his thing. But the point is that it was still involving emotions. So when you look at marriage, if you don't understand any other thing about it, understand that by virtue of the fact that it begins with an M, it's going to have something to do with emotions. All right, let's talk about what this word marriage means. And I'm referencing right now the online etymology dictionary for those who want to look it up. Under marriage, it says the action of entering into wedlock. I'm not going to read all of the meanings, they're not important for what we need to discuss. But the action of entering into wedlock. So that's a very important word associated with marriage. They call it wedlock. State or condition of being husband and wife. Another M word, matrimony. And you can see the word moon and its relationship to money or money or matrimony, because the moon makes people emotional. Think about that. They say that when the moon waxes full, there's some people who begin to act like savages. Watch out for the full moon, because this is thriller, People begin to go crazy when the full moon appears. And here's why. Because the moon, the larger it gets, they found that it has a pull on the tides of the oceans, especially the waters. It has a pull on those waters. And those waters The word water itself is a symbol for emotions. It symbolizes emotions. How do we know? Because every place on the body that gets overly emotional produces water. Your forehead, your underarms, your chest will get wet if you deeply involved in something emotional, even if it's just a basketball game and you're trying to win the game. Those emotions are producing water. If you're a baby, you might urinate on yourself if you get scared enough. So every place, the eyes, when you get sad enough, or if you get happy enough, you can cry tears of joy. But the point is that everywhere where emotions are prevalent, it can produce water. So the water became symbolized. See, the emotions part of me became symbolized through water. And then on top of that, you have the moon that's pulling on the tides. If it pulls on the tides of the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, and those oceans become tempestuous, they become, rattled and the ships start having problems out there when it's very, very wavy in the ocean. Imagine what's happening to little you and me, and we're 80% water. Yeah, we're 75, 80% water as adult humans. So that same moon that has that magnetic pull, magnetic mag, see, it has that magnetic pull on the bodies of water on Earth. Imagine what they're doing to humanity. That's why we got to be a lot more careful when during certain times of the season and certain times of the month when the moon is very, very prevalent. Because it can cause you to do things when the next day you wake up in a slammer and you wonder how you got there. Because you lost it, as people like to say, I lost it. You lost what? My emotions. All right. So there's many other things we can say about that, but I think you can put them together for yourself. So when we say marriage, we're talking about not only the age of mar, the age of things that can happen that can corrupt a relationship. This I'm giving you the secret meaning first, not the accepted meaning. Things that can happen that can mar and spoil your relationship. And why in the world would anybody want that to happen? People want that to happen because divorce is an industry.
Okay. For however long.
Divorce is an industry. You know. Yeah, I know. Divorce is an industry. You remember the song? It's cheaper to keep her.
Did you pick up the food you said you got?
You know? Yeah. It's cheaper to
Where's
keep
that?
her, the song says.
Where's Muhammad's food?
Right? It says when you get finished looking that judge in the face, you're gonna want to cuss the whole human race because it's cheaper to keep her. That's sad that we got to sing songs like that. But nevertheless, that's the reality of the common people. That's who we're talking about now, who are being manipulated into this quagmire stuff that we can't seem to get out of. Now, I like to use the word merge. My wife also, she actually came up with this. She said, marry, don't merge. No, pardon me. She says, merge, don't marry.
Get down some. So
Don't see your relationship as something that is to be marred and spoiled. See your relationship as something that is to be merged. Now let's look at the differences in the meaning. Merge means to plunge or to sink in, to dip, in, to immerse. I like that. If you're going to get married, don't half step. If you're going to get married, I understand that you're still two individuals, but don't do it in a way that says, I can't share anything with you. I can't, do the things with you that I used to do with my friends, with my homeboys. I can't do them with you. I can't, but can you have a conversation? Can you talk about some things that both of you might enjoy? And if both of you don't enjoy anything together, why are you together? There's nothing she does that you have an interest in. Then is your only interest in her body?
Oh.
There aren't human qualities that you know, really want to get to know better. So it causes us to have to rethink relationships. We have to rethink these relationships. So that's merge. It has to do with plunging. It has to do with washing. It has to do with dipping. And there's a word that's related to that that's called absorb. Absorb means to drink in, to suck up, to take in by absorption. We absorb medicine.
I said I got different sizes.
Yeah, when we take medicines, we are absorbing those medicines into our bloodstream. Now, so all we're talking about is our liquid properties,
Larger. They like
water and liquid properties. When we're talking about absorb, we're talking about drinking something, supping something, gulping something down, etc. Now,
Is M a reflection of W when like
yes, I'm
upside
glad you
down?
said that. It's inverted. It's upside down. Yeah, it's a reflection of W. When you, I'm gonna tell you why. And if I had, but you see it in your mind's eye when I say this. M
okay.
represents mother. The reason it represents mother, and you know, mothers are very emotional about their children. But the reason it represents mother, if you look at it, it's actually a stick figure of two legs with a V in between. And the V that is in between symbolizes the vagina. So it's two legs with a vagina in the middle. If I can't do it with my fingers, but you understand what I'm saying. The W is the woman also. It's a feminine letter. The W simply represents the woman laying down with her legs up in the air, and the V is still in the middle. So that's her in her role as potential mother. That's her as her role in the one that has to connect or have the husband connect with her in order to make what she's doing viable as a mother. The male has to connect. If you notice in the Arabic language, we have the word wa, which is the W, and it means and. But the and literally means to connect. If you say and, that means there's something else coming. And you have to connect it with what was said before. I'm going to the store, and after that, I'm going home. See? So you have to connect the two. So the W is simply a connector. And the M is the actual feminine principle, or what we call the mother letter. And it's right smack dab in the middle of the English language. And I believe also the Arabic language, if I'm not mistaken. But it represents the midway point. It represents the balance. Water is always seeking a balance. It's always seeking its own level, as they say. So the letters W and the letter V, which is actually in the middle of W, the V, right? They both are feminine oriented letters, and they represent, if you look at things that begin with V, of course, a vagina, the famous one. But start thinking about other words that begin with V.
Virgin.
Virgin. Even victory. Even though we think about that as a male occupation, but victory is childbirth. Yeah. But there's many other words that we can show you that begin with V that have to do with the viability of the feminine principle.
Well, vanilla.
Vanilla?
Yes.
Compared to chocolate. Tell me which one is masculine and which one is feminine.
Chocolate is probably masculine.
Yeah. See, for most of these words, you'd have to go deep into the etymology to find these connections, because a lot of them are what's called extant. That means they don't use them like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go far back enough, you're going to find some remote connection to these ideas that we're talking about. And remember now, all of these ideas were not related to humans and what humans do. Some of them are related to just what things in nature do, the dynamics in nature. So I can say, what about the word vote? You know, what does that have to do with feminine? You'd have to go back far enough to make the connection. And it doesn't have to be with a female. Feminine is a principle of operation in nature. It's not always a female. When you cast your vote, you are actually, theoretically speaking, casting sperm. I'm gonna let that germinate for a minute. You are casting a vote that is going to go into this booth. You go into a booth, you make a decision, and after a certain time period elapses, you come out with a product, a new president, a new governor, a new whatever, new school chancellor or whatever. So you go into a dark place.
Okay.
You need curtains, you know, give me some privacy. And you cast your vote. Nothing can escape Allah's fitrah. Everything in his creation is going to be either masculine principled or feminine principled. There's no trans community in Al-Islam. There's no in-between community in the Quran. Not even the Quran. The Quran is a masculine-oriented book. The Bible is a feminine-oriented book. Or let's say the Torah, because the word Bible is not in the Quran. But the word Torah is in there. And Allah refers to the Torah as ha. That's feminine for it. But it refers to the Quran as he. La rayba fihi. There's no doubt in it. But it literally would say there's no doubt in him. He, him. Allah gives a gender to everything in creation. You might say, well, what about Allah? Yeah, he gives a gender to him too. He presents Allah in the masculine gender most of the time, but sometimes the word Allah is given in the feminine gender. Go to on that, because it's not talking about biology. It's talking about principles of operation in the way things operate in nature, the way you perceive nature. So the masculine principle is always something that goes out in search of, and it affects the thing that is out here. And it changes even the forms of things that are out here. That's your scientific mind. That's masculine also. It goes out in search of, what is this? How do I use this? What can this be used for? And it begins to say, well, if I put this with that, and I put them together, then it's going to form some type of combustion and do this, that, and that's the scientific mind that's doing that. That's the masculine oriented mind. However, if I run across some information that I'm not familiar with, and it begins to influence how I think, now all of a sudden I was a Muslim, now I'm a socialist. Well, I had an idea that came into my mind and reconfigured my mind and produced something different. Well, that's my mind as a feminine principled object. So don't think that when Allah uses these masculine and feminine terms in the Quran, that he's not talking about things that are way above the average human's pay grade right now. We're going to come into these sciences, but we're not there yet. So every time he says him or her, or he or she, he's not talking about feminine males and females. Allah says in one place, and the male is in no ways like the female. The dhakar is in no ways like the untha. And we think that means that the male is in no ways like the feminine, like the female. You know, he's not weak like her. He's not, this, that, and third like her. That's not what it's saying. That line is actually saying that the feminine principle has an advantage over the masculine principle.
Hmm.
It's like saying, yeah, well, Ben in no ways is like, he's in no ways like Hassan. You know what I'm saying when I tell you that? He's nice, he's nice on the ball court, but he ain't in no ways like, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Well, that's what it's saying about the feminine principle, about the untha.
Hmm.
Let me drop a little science on you. Untha is from the word anatha, 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 and it means to be soft like iron. Iron can pour very gently, softly, but iron contains something called magnetism. Magnetism. And that's the main reason why it's being used to describe the feminine principle, because the feminine principle pulls things towards it. It magnetizes.
Hmm.
You understand? Yeah, you're walking down the street, you almost get what's that the problem in the neck when you get when the neck start what I'm talking, where you got to wear that little brace.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah, that's the men doing that. You don't find women normally doing that when a nice looking guy walks by.
Mhm.
You find that when a nice looking woman walks by. Oh man, he got to explain it to his wife sometimes. I'm sorry, baby. That girl there, she had it going on. I'm sorry, ain't nothing personal, but she was out of the unusual. She was unusual. She had unusual beauty. So she is that one that will attract, magnetize. Whereas the male, that means that which goes out in search of, just like the male part of the body. It goes out in search of a womb. It's in search of, and then it leaves its deposit in that womb, right? So this is the job of the male, to go out in search of, but that's what your mind does also when it's looking for information. It goes out in search of. So the mind in that sense is also masculine. But when it's letting ideas in that change its viewpoints, change its opinion about things, then the mind is also feminine. So the mind is both masculine and feminine in principle. Am I losing you?
No.
Oh, okay, good. I can continue.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Now, you let me know when you have to go.
No.
Now, let's speed it up a little bit.
This is going over to the building. Remind me.
Wife and the word gift are from the same etymology. WIFE and GIFT are from the same etymological root. So a wife should be a gift.
Hmm.
That's the first point. There's a saying in English, comes out of Europe, that says, never look a gift horse in the mouth. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I know you're in that age group. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. So if the word gift and the word wife are related, then what somebody might interpret in that sense is that a wife is also a horse. Wait a minute, instructor, what are you talking about? Yes, in the secret language that we spoke about at the top of this conversation, I told you that there are people who they play with language. They have what is called satire. that they have built into the language. This was done mostly by a group of people called the Black Monks. Don't worry about them right now.
Mm.
All right. Well, they were a secret group of people who went around the world changing language, introducing new language and changing language. The ancient Persians did the same thing before them. They went around the world changing language, putting their ideas into language, impregnating other language groups, so that by the time they started to speak and enunciate and come into the world with ideas, the ideas had the seeds of their ideas within them. And it made it a lot easier for those people to be conquered because they were already carrying the babies of these people through language. They were already carrying their ideas through language. Now, wife and gift are the same word. So on the surface, that's a good thing. You say my wife is a gift. Yes, she is. But on the underbelly of it is the idea that the wife is the same thing as a horse, and the horse is meant to be worked. What we need to do is we need to reestablish the meanings of the words man and woman. This is where we began going astray, when we started to give those two words false meanings. We have to reestablish the meanings of the words man, which does not mean male species, and woman, which does not mean female species. The word man is an old word that is connected to the word mind. You can look it up in anybody's etymology dictionary. Man means mind. We heard those words a few years ago, right back in 1975. Man means mind. Man means one who reflects. This is beautiful what I'm about to tell you. It means one who reflects. You might say, well, the woman, she reflects too. Yeah, that's why man is in her name. Woman. Matter of fact, she does more than reflect. She provides the womb through which the reflection can grow.
Mm.
She provides the womb that will repeat to her children what you taught her. So in that sense, the dhakar is not like the untha. The untha takes that thing into outer space. This is for purposes of us appreciating our women more.
Mm.
And by the time we finish, you'll see why. So man means mind. Woman means womb of mind. W-O-M-B. Womb of mind. The place where every mind has to come through in order to be taught. As a matter of fact, the place where every mind has to come through, period. You don't have a mind in the world that didn't come through a female, that didn't come through a woman. Absent what these crazy people are telling you about the transgender, you can have a birth, a man can give a baby and then have a baby. Get out of here. This is what they're saying now
Mm.
in the news. A man can have a baby. They said that in Congress, in the Senate.
Mm.
Yes, a man can have a baby. They said, bring your scientific proof. They didn't have no proof. Oh, man. Now, so we've already established the meaning, reestablished the meanings of man and woman. Yes, a woman is a mind. Yes, a woman can reflect. Where did we get that from? Because the moon reflects the light of the sun. The word man does not mean sunlight. The word man means moonlight. Man, moon. You hear the same letters, the M and the N in there, right? Because those two letters together mean to reflect. So he's reflecting. And when you reflect, most of the time you're in the dark. You're at home and you're in the dark and you're just to yourself. You're not having a hearty conversation with your homies. You're just in there like, oh, what does she mean when she said to me? And you just to yourself, because the moon is just to itself. The moon is not shining light on everything. The moon is shining light only on the things that are closest to it. Everything else looks ghostly. You're not trying to find your way home in the darkness in the middle of the desert. You got to do that when the sun comes out. So the M in the moon, that moon is reflecting just like water reflects your reflection. You look in the water, that you see you, but you're not really straight. You see it wavy. But that's you. But you see a distorted picture of you because that's what your emotions do. And when you start thinking on emotional topics, then the form will not always become clear. The water has to be real still in order to be clear. We call that meditation. When the waters of your psyche become real still, it's impossible to be totally still, but they become still enough so that emotions are not plaguing you. The way you feel about somebody or something, it doesn't enter into the judgment. It's just you and your clearest thinking possible. We call it being still. Like we talk about still run, we say still waters run deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about, the stillness of the mind. And I'm sure that the word still in English comes from the word salat.
Mm.
The letters are just transposed, which happens a lot in Arabic, in English, and in many languages. I'm sure of it, that they understood that salat is supposed to be a moment of stillness, uninterrupted stillness. Now,
I'm kind of stuck on this that things that never look a gift horse in the mouth.
yeah,
I understood what it meant a long time ago, but now when I'm listening to that word, it just doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense.
well, it doesn't, because you have to know what they meant by mouth.
Okay,
And you have to know what they meant by horse. So
right.
what they meant in a short sentence is that the way that ancient people who owned horses, of course, we don't own horses now. Most of us don't own a horse. But the way that they determined the age of a horse was to look a horse in its mouth, because its teeth in an
Mm.
older horse are a lot longer and they're not as well kept. So before you turn this horse down, I'm relating it to why this is related to the wife. Before you turn this woman down because you think she's old and haggardly and not really worth it, and she can't do what the younger girls can do for you, you better look that don't this is a gift. You didn't pay nothing for her. We gave
Mm.
her to you. Don't turn her down. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth and start talking about, well, she's too old, or
Okay.
or she can't do the work of a younger one. Don't do that. This is a gift horse. Didn't
Mm.
say an ordinary horse. It said do not look a gift horse.
Okay. Yeah.
Gift and give are related words. I gave her to you. That's why they talk about the woman. They say, I gave her away. The father, he says, I gave her away. You get it? She's the gift horse. Marriage, while I'm on that subject, the standard language that we use to describe language it debases the woman something terribly. We don't notice it now because we don't use these words like that. But in their secret satire culture, they still understand that that's what it means. That's why they won't improve upon those words. The woman is a whole lot of things that we're going to discuss momentarily. But when we talk about even the word hussy, you've heard of that word. Yeah, your generation, my generation, we know that word. A hussy is a mistress. Look at what the dictionary says about a hussy. A mistress of a household. Then right behind that, they say housewife.
Mm.
A hussy, see, house, hussy, and horse, they're all related terms. A hussy is a housewife. That's amazing to me. And they say they bring evidence that the word was contracted and shortened and all of the rest of that stuff, right? So, see, understanding the terms of agreement between a male and a female or a man and a woman is the key in the success of any merger, what they call marriage. There are keys if you plan on being successful in a marriage. You have to divorce yourself, so to speak, from the false meanings that have been applied by language conspirators. We don't realize how powerful language is. We don't realize what Imam Muhammad told us years ago, and that is that words make people. We don't realize how that is. We don't know what the science is behind words making people. We think words are just innocent things that we say out of our mouths, and they don't have any real effect on behavior. And we are absolutely wrong
Mm.
because you have a psyche, a subconscious mind that you're speaking to, not just a conscious mind. And it's the subconscious mind that takes those sounds. Each one of those sounds means something. Each one of those sounds and those words are being interpreted a certain way in the subconscious mind. So the more more you hear it, the more it's going to affect you, but on the subconscious level. And sometimes you be done broke up already and just, well, what happened to us? I don't even know why we're not together. People do that. They come back together. So I don't even know why we broke up the first time. But it's because words are having such a powerful impact on the psyche. But let me tell you something about this word, wed, which is a very good word. When we say, I want to wed you, try to use that instead of saying, I want to marry you. Say, I would like to wed you. The word wed comes from the word wood, meaning nothing nasty.
Mm.
The word wood comes from an Arabic word called wudud.
Mm.
Ah, right? That's one of Allah's attributes, al-wudud. And what does wudud mean?
Love. Love.
Yes, love. But not just any love. Out of the 14 words in Arabic for love, the word wudud is the top word. Because wudud means that this is almost like an everlasting, like nothing can get in the way of this love. Whatever happens, happens. We just deal with it, baby. It's us for life, that kind of thing. So how is that associated with wood? Because the woods of certain trees are that durable. They're that long lasting. Wood be, yeah, man, be 100 years later and the house is still standing if it's made of wood. So people back then understood that wood was a very viable and reliable and a worthy thing to build a house or build a boat or something like that. And it wouldn't like do an overnight thing on you and flip the script. It's still going to be good. It's wood. And from wood, we get the word word. So your words, whatever you choose as words, are supposed to be long lasting. The meanings are supposed to last. Well, look at how many meanings flip the script in the English language. Everything good is bad and everything bad is good now. But that's not true for the Quranic words. You can't just take a Quranic word and apply a new age meaning to it. What it is what it is. So wood and word are the same. In the beginning was the word, meaning the viable, reliable meaning for things. The fitra meaning is really what the Bible is saying. In the beginning was the word. And then the word took on flesh. The word became moving and grooving in the world because the human being is a combination of words. He is a package of, but the words are supposed to be connected to the fitrah. That's what guarantees you your success. But if you're running around now thinking that there's such a thing as a transgendered sex, a third sex, or fourth sex, they said there are thousands. They said there are thousands of genders. How far away have we gotten from the fitra? And this is not to cast any negative aspersions on anybody who chooses a lifestyle for themselves. But you can't try to force that lifestyle on me and my understanding of what nature is. You can do what you want to do, boogie on reggae woman. You can do what you want to do, but you can't force that meaning on me in opposition to what the Quran is telling me that thing is. Allah said untha, dhakar, untha, male, female, and called her dhakarat, feminine dhakar, meaning she's because dhakar means thinker. You hear where they got the word thinker, dhakar. So it's not just male. It means that you had the freedom to roam. And because you had the freedom to roam more than the female, you ran into more stuff to deal with. You ran into more things to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Man, if I say the wrong thing to this, we have a war out here. It'd be a battle between the tribes. He had much more to think about than she did, even though she was home taking care of babies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that she can't think. She's zakarat. She can think, she does think, but she doesn't have the obligation of being the one to bring all of these ideas from outside of the house in so that she could do what she needed to do as a work. It's beautiful when you understand that. All right. Now, a marriage, second major point, a marriage is a business. Oh, buddy, hear me when I say this. So, a marriage is a merger. A marriage is a business. See, if you go into it knowing that, then there's no room for surprise. When she says, "Where's the money for the rent, honey?" When she says, "Where's the money for the child's daycare?" What were you doing all of this time? Well, I was looking for work. Looking for work in all the wrong places. You know, so you got to do your part. That's what merging means. I bring my stuff, you bring your stuff, and we make it, we find where we can do it together. And it's not about your world anymore alone. It's your world when you're in the privacy of your room or sitting in the bathroom, it's your world. But not when you're out here trying to deal with the world. Is it just your world? We're supposed to be a united front now against all opposition so that we can make it and make it better for our children and our children's children to come. So you got to work with me on this. See, so marriage is a business. And in a business, there are roles to play in order for the enterprise to be successful. You got to play your role. Consider your marriage to be a business and consider your business to be an enterprise. So stop looking at it just as two people, rubbing skin, having fun. All of that is the residual benefit that you're able to, because for you won't be able to just rub and have fun and be, when she get pregnant, a lot of that stuff is going to stop because Allah is introducing you to a bigger business plan. Having a baby is one business part of the business plan, but when you have that baby, she's not going to be as interested in being in the bed with you for hours like she was before she got pregnant. Now the business has to expand. You got to find something else to do. And what you do is you got to go out and find some other way of bringing in some more income so that her life can be comfortable. We got to get back to the fitrah. It doesn't mean she can't work. She can work from home. She can do a whole lot of work. But the priority is the raising of those children so that they don't go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs like you see many of them now in the streets. They're just crazy. Our children have gone, we've just lost control on the most part. Now, here's point number 3. All words that end in SHIP, ship, are water terms. And they react like water reacts. You touch water, it ripples. Think about it when we say relationship. Even when we say friendship. When we say business relationship, all words that end with ship react like water reacts. And water can become turbulent after being peaceful. be peaceful for days. And all of a sudden the winds begin to whip up and that water becomes turbulent. It can overturn your boat. The skies can become tempestuous, blow the cap off your head if it wanted to. So we got to be careful when we're investigating language. Look for those words that end in ship. This is how I counsel when I do marriage counseling. I say, look for ship. Now, you know, this is a relationship. So don't expect for it to be stable all of the time. Don't expect for it to be steady as we go all of the time. It's not going to happen. That's not the nature of relationships. Peaceful sometimes when you can have the water calm down to the point where you can see your reflection in it. So you have to be still to see a reflection. But most of the time, that water is moving and grooving and turbulent, and you can see something that vaguely looks like you when you put your face up against the water. Because you're not supposed to be looking for you. You're supposed to be looking for the business. What's going to help move this product? What's going to help move the commerce? Commerce, two M's. Water, water, water. Commerce began on the water. Most of it still is on the water. Now, remember to remind me now if you have to go. Normally, ships were created to be supported by water. And water is symbolic of three things. Here we go. Emotions, morals, and economics. Put all three of those words into one category. Water terms. Emotions, because emotions are intended to keep you clean. As a matter of fact, after you have a good cry, you feel better. They're intended to free your spirit, to clean up your spirit. If you've been feeling down, you know, your mother passed or somebody close to you in the family, something bad happened, and you have a good cry, but then after that, you're like, oh no, I'm good now. You know, I done had me a good cry. Because the water, see, emotions are symbolic of water. When you wash up, you feel better. Even if it's just a ritual voodoo that they teach us, you know, if you just do that, you feel a little better. Then, I mean, you'll feel great if you take a bath or a shower. But just sometimes splashing water on your face makes you feel better. Water has that filter property built into it to make you feel better. Cleanliness is next to godliness. We have all these sayings in our language, right? So these are usually the three areas where couples get into difficulty. Let me repeat them. Emotions, morals, and economics. They say 50% of the marriages that fail in America are because of money and the mismanagement of money. I hope this is helping some people. So a marriage runs into problems when we run into emotional issues, moral depravity, meaning you're doing something outside of what the spouse would have you do with somebody who ain't supposed to be doing the do with you, and also money mismanagement. Those are the three areas that are going to cause the problems, the most problems in marriages. The word ship is consonantally connected to the word shift. So S-H-I-P, P interchanges with F as what's called a labial, a lip sound. And the T feminizes the word, just like it does in Arabic with the tat marbuta. I don't know if you understood all of that, but the word ship and shift are the same words. Now, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? All ships are constantly shifting their direction. If you're in a car, you can go for a long stretch on some of these highways, I-95, whatever it is, man, and you can go practically straight way for a very, very long time before you have to turn off the road, before you have to shift, go up a hill, mountainside or something. But not like when you're in the ocean. In the ocean, even though the waters are all around you, for you to find your direction and for you to find the safest route and the shortest route, your ship has to constantly be shifting. Sometimes you see the captain of a ship and he'll be, boom, to turn in the thing, turn it to get out of the way to, it might be an iceberg or you're constantly shifting. And that's how it is in relationships. A relationship has to prepare to constantly shift course. Things happen. We can't go on the vacation we were looking to take because so-and-so died and we had to use the money to bury him. I can't get mad at that. You had to bury your father. We go to, wherever we was going to go, Puerto Rico, we go later. That's not the important thing. We have to adjust to the shift. And if you're not ready for that in a relationship, you're not ready for a relationship because there will be shifts.
What about the economics piece of it? You mentioned economics.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, that's why I put it last. We talked a little bit about the moral shift.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just don't feel the same way about the person like you used to feel when you got married. Got married 7 years ago and just not feel. That's what we say to ourselves. And sometimes we say that to her. I'm not feeling this relationship anymore. But unless you know the nature of emotions, you won't be able to correct that problem. You'll carry it with you into the next relationship. That short-term love stuff. If that's all your relationship is built on, sex and fun, you are in trouble no matter where you go, unless you go with somebody who just likes sex and fun. But then you're going to burn each other out on sex and fun, and you're going to be looking for another mate eventually. So marriage is probably the institution that challenges us the most when it comes to human growth and evolution, how we evolve as people. Marriage is not for the purposes of keeping us in the same place, humanly speaking. Marriage is for the purpose of bringing our resources together with another person's resources so that we can evolve properly, mentally, morally, spiritually, emotionally, even instinctively. After a while, we start saying, I knew you was going to say that. You finishing my sentences again. Me and my wife almost don't have to speak to each other anymore. Just because we pretty much know what we're going to, if we're in a particular conversation, I know she's going to say this thing here because I know how she thinks. I've been with her long enough. So we joke with each other. We say, yeah, pretty soon I'm not going to talk to you at all. I'll just look at you and you pick it up. you know. So we have to be prepared for those kinds of shifts in the relationship. And that's on the moral side. We have to know what the person is against. We have to know what the person stands for, even if we don't stand for the same thing. We have to at least respect the fact that she stands for a particular principle that I might not think is all that whatever she thinks it is, but I have to respect it. Why? Because she's a human being who's got her own mind. I can't force her to think about every subject the way Instructor Bilal, because Instructor Bilal said, and she said, the hell with Instructor Bilal. I got a mind of my own. I have a life that I've lived that influences the way I think. So I can't just go because you think it. It works for you, but it might not work for me. So we're growing emotionally. We're growing as far as our emotional choices are concerned. And then lastly, economics is the backbone that gets broken almost every time in a relationship. Because we come into the relationship believing that we can do whatever we want with our money. Now, Muslims have been conditioned like that. Muslims have been conditioned to say, well, my money is my money. That's the man. But no. Oh no, the wife is conditioned to say, my money is my money, but your money is also my money.
Mm-hmm.
You might be reading that wrong. Yeah. Am I supposed to take care of her? Yes, I agree with that. Am I supposed to get her everything her heart desires? No, I don't agree with that. There's nothing in the Quran that says I'm supposed to adhere to your every call and everything you thought about wanting. You can have that while you just sit at home and you don't even have babies by me. I don't raise all my children. I don't help you raise your children. And you think that just because you say you want a new coat or a new fur, that stuff that you only got 5 of them already. You need another pair of shoes on top of the 17 that you have. I don't have to agree with that. Now I can say if you want to go out and work and you're not raising children, you want to go out and work and make your own money, go right ahead. But these basic things like the rent and the light staying on, electricity running through the walls, and that's gonna stay on no matter what. Even if you leave me, that's going to stay on. I hope I'm not talking too harsh for some people.
No.
But we have to understand where the balance is, especially for people as fickle as we are. And I mean so-called African American people. We're very fickle. We're very dreamy when it comes to what our responsibilities are. And we pull our ideas sometimes out of places that have no real relevance or substance to them. A lot of things we're charging to the Quran that are nowhere in the Quran. They might be in a hadith somewhere, but I'm not counting that. I'm going with what is in Al Quran,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So do the basics and then give her enough freedom to be herself. Give her enough freedom so that she's got a chance to think for herself and maybe come up with some things she can do from home or travel a little bit. You going everywhere you want to go. Give her a chance to, if she don't have the funds to try, then you do that. That's your sadaqah. That's the beauty of a relationship. That you're not being forced to. Nobody has to say, God said do it. Your nature says do it. God commandeth thee to give her money, to give her. Why God got to command me? Like it's not in my nature to do that. So there are a lot of things that are in the Quran that are not being understood or properly understood because we still have this machismo thing in our psyche. Like, I got to be the man. I got to be the whatever, the breadwinner. Was Khadija the breadwinner?
Mm.
Did you read anywhere where the prophet told her you got to stop working because you're a female?
Was that from earlier? The dinosaurs were popped earlier, right?
No. So
Okay.
we don't even understand the dynamics of the history that they give us. And we're making decisions generally for situations that should be given some specificity because we're basing it on verses from the Quran that we don't completely understand. And I mean, all the way down to the whole concept of the 4 wives. I'm not going to get into that because I'll put you in trouble. Yeah, I don't want you to get in trouble. Yeah, he said that when he was talking to that brother Hassan. Then you be in trouble. You would think the women would be happy to hear it the way I explain it. It's not talking about 4 wives. Nowhere in the Quran that says you can have 4 wives.
Mm.
But again, because we don't understand the language, we don't understand the premise. Because we don't understand the reasons for why things are in the Quran. Why? If he can't have 4 wives, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Is that in the Quran? Why?
It's taking care of those who have lost their husbands and need economics, need a
How
source of.
many men do you know who's got more than 1 wife? Tell you that straight up. The reason I got married to the second one here is
No,
because she had orphans.
right.
And the
No.
Quran clearly says that
Mm-hmm.
to take care of the orphans. And he says that while he's mentioning these so-called 4 that you think are in the Quran.
Mhm.
But they never mention that. But every time I see a brother going out to get a second wife, she's younger than the first one.
Mhm.
Nah, it's not all cases. All right, I got you on that. But I'm just saying, most of the ones that I knew a brother who used to have four wives. He kept four wives, but they were not always the same four. Before
Rotate.
he get tired of one, yeah, he rotated them. He kept one. One he kept. The first one he married, he kept her no matter high water, whatever they call it. But those other three, they came and went like McDonald's workers. When he got rid of that next one, the second, then he'd bring in another one. So what I'm saying is that we have mismanaged and misused what we think Allah is saying in the Quran pertaining to these forms. I'm going to have a whole separate webinar on that subject. Like I said, it'll just be me talking, so I won't get anybody else in trouble. Although I don't think they'll get in trouble if they understand the logic. And if they get in trouble, they're in trouble with Allah for misunderstanding what Allah has said. Very simple words in the Quran that if you understood them, you would never read that ayat that way again. It never says two or three or four, married two or three or four. That's not in there. Now people will be quick to say, Instructor Bilal, they put it in the comments box. You're wrong. It's
Mhm.
look right here. I'm gonna photocopy it. It says two or three or four. That's what it says in the English translation, but that's not what it says in the Arabic. So unless you're skilled in both languages, don't present an argument to me. There's actually no stipulation on how many wives a man can take. How you like that one? You got some Muslim kings in Africa who got 10 wives. Yeah, they can afford it. And they all get along. They all one family. They're taking pictures and selfies together and all that. And, and then there are some that say, I can't have my, no, I burn out messing around trying to. If you burn out on four, you burn out on seven. If you burn out on four is enough to burn out. You're in different households. You got to run. You got to supply everything. This one needs this, that. The other one needs that. You got to supply all those needs. No, you're supposed to be working in the interest of the orphans. What do the orphans need? In matter of fact, according to the same ayat, you're supposed to be marrying the orphans in some cases. But we have misnomers, Brother Hassan, even related to the word for marriage, nikah. We have misunderstanding even about the word for marriage because we're not familiar with all of the different ways that that word is used in the Quran. We think it just means wife, contract, obligation, and she can have all the goodies. And look, that scheme, that language scheme is so wicked that even when we die, he gets 72 virgins. He gets, now this is not in the Quran, as you know, but they say that the hadith say that you get 72, not just wives, uh-uh, you get 72 pure and perfect virgins. Okay, so what does she get? Does she get 72 men? No. She's just got to deal with watching you and your 72 and not only do you get 72 virgins. This is like let's make a deal. Oh no, we got more for you behind door number three. Not only do you get 72 virgins every morning after you have gone into them the night before. By the time the sun comes up, she's a virgin all over again. Brand new, brand new. Oh man. Wow, me. Thank you, God. You needed 72 for that to be pleasurable?
Wow.
They are, and they say that their skin is so, oh man, it's so that she's like see-through. You can see through her. She's so pure. And I asked myself, would I want to wake up to one woman who I could see through her flesh, corpuscles, heart beating? That's it's so crazy that you wonder how any of us ever went for it, but it's in the strongest books of so-called hadith. I tell you for the last time, stop playing around with those so-called hadith and go with the real hadith, the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Allah calls it ahsanul Quran, ahsanul hadith. So, that's my message to those people out there who think they know what they're talking about, and they don't. And they would come closer to their own purity in their deen if they would just get it together and follow the program. Now, lastly, when water becomes stagnant, many problems can occur. A marriage requires that you become and remain emotionally connected
Mm-hmm.
and what is called bonded. The word bond is related to the word band. That's why you get each other, or at least her, a band. Because you're supposed to be banded, bonded. Standstill water can become polluted, and when it becomes polluted, it will eventually develop a stench.
Mm.
You know that from just passing by a cesspool or having your whatever you call it outside your house, that filters out
Right.
yeah, septic tank. Yeah, just from having a bad septic tank, man. It'll drive you out of your house
Oh yeah.
till you get it fixed.
Yep.
So it is also not very good for hygienic purposes regarding cleaning yourself. You can't clean yourself with a septic tank water with that kind of, polluted standstill water. You go up to it and there's all kind of tsetse flies and stuff dead in there, fleas and mosquitoes no, you got to have water that's moving.
Mm.
So when riding a ship, you are riding on waves, and waves are not stable. Listen to these words. Horses are kept in stables to keep them from venturing out into other people's business. This is how the world has traditionally viewed women. Horses are sometimes kept on a harness, and a harness is body equipment that is specifically designed to protect a male's sex organs. That's the purpose of a harness. They used to have these instruments specifically for women back in the days of the cowboys and all of that. I forget what they call it, but they used to lock it. They put it around her private parts and they would lock it. There's a word for it. I'm forgetting it right now. All right. So it was the woman they were concerned about being promiscuous, the one that was home all of the time, not the one who was out and about. They were concerned about the one that was home all of the time, being unfaithful to the wife. I'm not saying there aren't some who are. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the general picture that they paint for us is that the woman is the harlot. The word harness and the word horse are related words. They figure a horse needs to be bridled, tamed. Bridle, bride. Is he the bride? No, she is the bride because she's the one who needs to be bridled and worked. We ride her and we put blinders on her so she can't see what's going on in the world around her. Put blinders on if we have to. And she'll run into a fire for you. Likewise, the woman is kept guarded in a way which separates her from society. but does not protect her from him if he chooses to be unfaithful or overly aggressive towards her. So you're protecting her. You keep her in the house. You make sure that she dresses from head to toe with garments. Sometimes in the Wild West, they used to let the women tease the men out there with their bosoms hanging out. You remember the cleavage hanging all over the place, even though she had a long dress down to the floor. She would still come out there with, cleavage showing. So they saw her as being like a harlot. The whole concept of a wife back then, now, I'm not saying today, I'm saying back then, what established the meanings for what we're dealing with today is what I'm dealing with. And back then, a wife was a housewife who was called a hussy wife. She was a hussy. She was considered almost to be the status of a prostitute. That's why they kept her veiled, unavailable to the public, kept in secret, like a paramour. Lastly, bride and brute are related words. The letters D and T are interchangeable. So bride and brute are related words because she is the workhorse. She is the brute. She is the beast. Now that's hard for some people to take. But I'm telling you what the framers of this language did to the language so that you will begin to choose terms that do not reflect their scheme. So that when you're talking to people, encourage them to use Quranic schemes, Quranic words, Quranic values.
What you wanted to believe that they were cutting out?
So she was the one who was considered to be low life. She was the one who was considered to be uncouth and even savage. So they really referred to her as though she was a beast. So they used to say about the woman that she didn't have a mind. She only had flesh. She was only here to satisfy his fleshly desires. She didn't have a mind. No use in asking her about business, about commerce, about anything other than what she was there for. So those are related words. But they were supposed to tame her. She was uncouth. They were supposed to tame her, meaning the men were supposed to tame her and introduce her to high society. So most of those women that they had back in the day, back in the 1800s and the early 1900s and all of that, those women were not originally high society women. They were women of the street who they brought into their household in order to tame them. And they called it high society.
How long is the class? Are you on mute?
5 minutes. I promise I'll be through.
That's my wife.
Oh, well, I better let you go.
No, we're here at the Muhammad schools, and she's preparing with a bunch of other young ladies, preparing for the kindergarten graduation tomorrow.
Oh, okay, great. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's great. Congratulations to her.
That's what she does. That's what she does.
Yeah, and she obviously does it well.
She does.
Yeah, she sounded when you described her in the text, she sounded like somebody who pays attention to detail.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. That's wonderful.
I call it, sometimes she nags though.
But it's okay. But see the language you're using? That's their language, because a nag is a female horse. So we're gonna break out of this horse language. We gotta break out of this horse language.
Tell him I need to have a conversation with him.
She says she needs to have a conversation with
You tell her I said anytime, but you have to be there. As long as Tamir is there, I'm good. Yeah, I'm not getting anybody into any trouble. But this will get you out of trouble because it's all language. It's all dealing with language.
Right.
They built this language. It doesn't mean that you mean it when you say it. It only means that they built it into their language so that we can express ourselves through their scheme.
Hmm.
That's all it means. When we say marriage, we're talking mare. Mare is a female horse.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying we need to get away from this horse language. It no longer fits our level of development. Now, lastly, for real, the word for marriage is nikah. And there's a word out of ancient Egypt called ankh. You ever hear of it?
I've heard that name, but I can't recall
Yeah.
the meaning.
The ankh is the cross symbol that they wore around their necks. And it had an oval, and then beneath it, it had a cross. An oval, and then a cross beneath it, right beneath it.
Okay.
And the Egyptians and the people who love ancient Egypt and all of that, they wear that. They wear that like the Christians wear the crosses. So the word nikah and the word ankh are the same exact letters because those languages interchange with each other. The wisdom of ancient Egypt is clocked into words in the Quran. The Quran explains a lot of things that come out of ancient Egypt, but it explains it in Quranic Arabiya or Quranic expression. You know, just like the English word thought comes out of ancient Egyptian language from Thoth, Thoth, Thoth. That was their god of writing. So thought in English came out of Thoth in Arabic because thinking was the equivalent of writing something down in the memory. I have some thoughts. Let me write that. Let me remember that. Let me write that down up here. You know, like the old numbers players used to do. They didn't use pen and pencil, you know. They said, no, don't write it down. Now you got evidence. You know, we've been gambling, you know. No, they just remember all the numbers. They remember that stuff because they were using Thoth. We come from a people like that. They were using Thoth. So Nikah and Ankh are related terms. And they have meanings. You know, the oval on top is the spiritual, which is the feminine principle. The cross beneath it is the masculine that was upholding the feminine, supporting the feminine. Same thing Allah says about in the Quran, that arijalu kawamuna ala nisa, that the men, quote unquote, are the supporters and maintainers of nisa, the women. That's what the Ankh is telling you. So the Quran is giving us updated ancient Egyptian wisdom, while at the same time not limiting your understanding to physical concepts like males and females. It's not talking about males and females, it's talking about roles and responsibilities. So they say that nikah means to tie a knot, K-N-O-T, to tie a knot. But what is being tied together are the feminine and masculine principles, which allow for the successful union of these principles as they operate in nature or in you. The feminine and masculine principles operate in nature, but they also operate in you, inside of you. And the key word is control. This is what you tell the people that you counsel. The key word in any relationship is control. And you have to become the doctor that is able to alleviate the sickness that is in these relationships. You have to be the one in control. You have to be the one to control the direction of the ship, the relationship. You can't do it if you don't have any control. You can't do it if you don't compromise on the control. And your control has to be accurate. If you're driving a ship, you're steering a ship, you have to be accurate. You have to know where it is you want to go, what route it is you want to take to get there, and how much time it's going to take for you to get there. You have to be accurate. And in the word accurate is the word cure. That's where the cure is, in your accuracy. You can't guess your way through a relationship. You have to be accurate. What do we want out of this relationship? What are we trying to achieve out of this relationship? Where do we intend to be this time next year? Simple question for any couple. Where do we intend to be as a business? We're doing some business here. We're selling stuff, or we're, whatever, and we have stuff to bring to the market. Where do we intend to be a year from now? How much money do you think we would have raised or made doing what it is we do? Politically, where will we be? Who are we looking to support? What kind of people, political people, are we looking to support to enhance this part of the community? And I'm not even talking about the president. I'm talking about the dog catcher, whoever you got local. I'm talking about, people that you have running town hall meetings and city hall. Who are we looking to? Are we going to be arguing over that? Or are we going to come together and say, well, what kind of politics do you like? See? What kind of entertainment are we going to introduce our children to when we start having children? It's going to be the wild style rappers and the people who talk about just about anything they can put their minds on, or are we going to be looking to have our children experience more culture? We're going to take them to some jazz concerts and whatever. We're going to take them to some places that's going to introduce them to real culture, and that's how we're going to do it. Controlling the emotions, controlling the intellect. Those two things. And with that said, I relinquish my microphone. And I thank you for your time. I can be a little long-winded, as you see, but I thank you for offering me this opportunity to share that information with you.
This will be where we can go back and look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Then,
Yeah. About an hour or so. Yeah.
okay.
Like I say, I'm going to let it cook, and
Okay.
I have to edit it,
Mm-hmm.
put our names on the front of it and that kind of thing. So it'll look nice
Okay.
when you let your wife look at it, or whoever you're going to let look at it.
Definitely.
And it'll be ready.
Okay.
All right.
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. It's a pleasure and an honor. And we'll do it again soon. And remember, you're in. So just look for the link.
Link. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about not being available on Sunday. If you can't make it, then you look at the replay.
So what time on Sunday do you do it?
Sundays it's 1:00 p.m.
1 o'clock. Okay.
1:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I want you to at least, if you can, stick your head in the classroom one time so people can see that we have a new member.
Definitely. Definitely.
If you're going to do that, let me know that you're going to do that so I can introduce you properly. Okay.
I will. Yeah.
All right, my brother. Appreciate you and your
Thank
wife.
you so much. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, it's absolutely my pleasure, man. All right. Thank you so much.
You.
As I greet you in the greetings of peace that obligate us both to keep the peace. Salamun alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
All right.